puddle and making a nuisance of ourselves to each other. Most of us had long stems of bluegrass in our mouths and were chewing on the ends, and all of us were feeling great. I had my binoculars up to my eyes, looking around at different things. First, I watched a red squirrel high up in a big sugar tree, lying flat and lazy on the top of a gray branch as though he was taking a 2 o'clock in the afternoon sunbath, which was what time of day it was that Saturday. I'd been lying on my back looking up at the squirrel. Then I rolled over and got on my knees and focused the binoculars on Sugar Creek. Sugar Creek's face was lazy here, because it was a wide part of the creek, and the water moved very slowly, hardly moving, and was as quiet as Pass Lake had been up in Minnesota, in the Paul Bunyan country, on a very quiet day. There were little whitish patches of different shaped specks of foam floating along on the brownish-blue water. While I was looking at Sugar Creek with its wide, quiet face, and dreaming about a big blue water lake up north, I saw some V-shaped waves coming out across the creek from the opposite shore. The pointed end of the V was coming straight toward the spring and bringing the rest of the V along with it. I knew right away it was a muskrat swimming toward our side of the creek. As I looked at the brownish muskrat through my binoculars, it seemed very close. I could see its pretty chestnut brown fur. Its head was broad and sort of blunt, and I knew if I could have seen its tail, it would have been about half as long as the muskrat, deeper than it was wide, and that it would have scales on it and only a few scattered hairs. I quickly grabbed a big rock and threw it as hard and straight as I could right toward the acute angle of the long-moving V, which was still coming across the creek toward us. And would you believe this? I'm not always such a good shot with a rock, but this time that rock went straight toward where the muskrat was headed. And by the time the rock and the muskrat got to the same place, the rock went kerswishity-splash right on the broad, blunt head of the musquash, which is another and kind of fancy name for a muskrat. Circus, the acrobat in our gang, was the only one who saw me do what I'd done. He yelled out to me in a voice that sounded like a circus barker's voice, "Attaboy, Bill! Boy, oh boy, that was a great shot! I couldn't have done any better myself!" "Better than what?" Nearly all the rest of the gang woke up and asked him at the same time. "Bill killed an Ondatra zebethica," Circus said, which is the Latin name for a muskrat. Circus's dad is a trapper, and Circus has a good animal book in his library. "Socked it in the head with a rock." Everybody looked out toward Sugar Creek, to the place where the rock had socked the Ondatra, and where the two forks of the V were getting wider and wider, almost disappearing into nothing, the way waves do when they get old enough. "Look at those waves," Poetry said, meaning the new waves my big rock had started. There was a widening circle going out from where it had struck. "Reminds me of the waves on Pass Lake, where we spent our vacation last summer," Poetry said. "Remember the ones we had a tilt-a-whirl ride on, when Eagle Eye's boat upset and we got separated from it? If we hadn't had our life vests on, we'd have been drowned, because it was too far from the shore to swim." "Sure," Dragonfly piped up. "And that's the reason why every boy in the world who is in a boat on a lake or river ought to wear a life vest, or else there ought to be plenty of life preservers in the boat just in case." "Hey," Lil Jim piped up, squeaking in his mouse-like voice, "your Ananda something or other has come to life away down the creek." And sure enough it had. Way down the creek, maybe 50 feet farther, there was another V moving along toward the Sugar Creek Bridge, which means I hadn't killed the musquash at all, but only scared it. Maybe my rock hadn't even hit it, and it had ducked and swum underwater the way Ondatra zebethicas do in Sugar Creek, and as loons do in Pass Lake in northern Minnesota. "I'm thirsty," Circus said. He jumped up from where he'd been lying on his back with his feet propped up on a big hollow stump. That hollow stump was the same one his dad had slipped down inside once and had gotten bit by a black widow spider that had her web inside. Right away we were all scurrying down the steep hill to the spring and getting a drink of water apiece, either stooping down and drinking like cows, or else using the paper cups that we kept in a little container that we had put on the tree that leaned over the spring, in place of the old tin cup that we'd battered into a flat piece of tin and thrown into Sugar Creek. All of a sudden, we heard a strange noise up at the top of the hill that sounded like somebody moving along through last year's dead leaves, and at the same time talking or mumbling to himself about something. "Shh," Dragonfly said, shushing us, he being the one who nearly always heard or saw something before any of the rest of us did. We all hushed.